Welcome to this degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. Very happy to have you guys with us. A huge weekend of college football with these conference championship games. What do they mean? That's a question that's swirling about. And what exactly is the so-called committee up to? We thought, and we've been talking about it this week, that expanding the number of teams in the playoffs would diffuse much of the confusion about some deserving team being left out of the entire picture, OOP, as they said in dog racing, out of picture. But it's only exacerbated the situation to the point where it's almost become ridiculous, a lot of the speculation. The professor joins us here on the program. And I know, Professor, you follow this very ardently as to what's going on. And it's always interesting team who gets hosed, who got left out, who got favorable treatment. But I think we're seeing more and more glaring examples of it as they've expanded the number of possibilities for teams in the postseason, which you would think would be the antithesis of what would have actually happened back in the days when people voted on such things. So, what are your thoughts
I
about?
mean, well, first of all, they call it a committee. It's still people voting, right?
Yeah.
Like it's different people voting. You hope they bring a little bit more knowledge and a little bit less bias into the process than the random, I, well, I mean, we saw the example, the girl in California who had no idea who played and had a vote in like week 3.
Yes.
Uh, she left the Gators in like the top 10 after they lost to USF at home.
Right.
Um, and here's the other thing is like, oh, well, people love to bring up the coaches. Well, it's the coaches. Almost no coach in America actually fills that out. That's some kid in the athletic department whose job it is to fill out the coach's sheet. So, what you're bringing into that probably isn't entirely pure. And then, you have to deal with this committee in the context of what it is, which is it faces outside pressures and just trying to hold this playoff together and being pressured by two leagues that absolutely dominate the span who want every team from their league is remotely qualified in those playoffs, and are holding up negotiations about expansions because they want guarantees about their members being in the playoffs. And I think we're kind of witnessing that this year in the rankings of Alabama and Oklahoma. Oklahoma seems to be 100% in. Most people convinced Alabama's in, win or lose. Some people think that's because Alabama got left out last year. Some people think that's just because the SEC is demanding extra representation this year with a 15. We'll see how all of it plays out. I think the only thing consistent has been a bias towards big brand schools, and big brand conferences. You look at what they say, what the committee has said, and what their written criteria is. None of it's consistent. They say the head-to-head thing, and they did that for Texas and Vanderbilt. Texas is ahead of Vanderbilt, even though Texas has an extra loss because Texas beat Vanderbilt. Okay, but you didn't do that with Miami and Notre Dame. Okay, you say it's the eye test with Notre Dame. Well, okay, show me anybody in America who thinks Oklahoma passes the eye test. And I'm not trying to pick on Oklahoma, but their two biggest wins of the year, Alabama and Tennessee, were games where Alabama and Tennessee just decided to start turning the ball over. And it wasn't like Oklahoma's this, turnover machine all year long. It basically only started with Tennessee. I think they had 3 turnovers on the season coming into that game. And earlier in the year, Oklahoma needed one of the more ridiculous officiated games to beat Auburn at home. So again, and if you look at the offensive rankings among the teams that are in the top 14 or 15, they're by far the lowest. They're only like in the mid 50s in offensive rankings. So it's not the eye test for Oklahoma. And then I think the committee has done a wonderful job in terms of serving the money and the television interests, in that they've reduced the debate to Miami and Notre Dame for one spot. When I personally think the debate should be Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami for 3 spots. And I personally happen to believe Oklahoma should be in a lot more jeopardy than they are. I personally believe if Alabama loses this week, they should be out. And I don't actually think they're going to lose this week, but if they do, you never know.
Did Barry Switzer cost you a large parlay at some point? You're not a big fan. I've never heard you rail against Oklahoma
Well,
like
actually, I had Auburn the day they screwed over Auburn with the refs, so that didn't help my
that.
disposition on this Oklahoma team.
Yeah,
But I mean, no, I'm trying to call it as neutrally as I can, and I'm not trying to be every guy in South Florida. We beat Notre Dame. We should be in the playoff. Again, do I think Miami's one of the 12 best teams in the country? I do. Do I think Miami's one of the 10 best teams in the country? I do. But I recognize, I just think that the debate should be wider than it is. Again,
yeah,
another one you've heard with Notre Dame. Well, look how they're finishing the season. Okay, if how you're finishing the season counts, Alabama's looked like crap in their last 5 games. They lost to Oklahoma. They were neck and neck with LSU until Nussmeier got hurt. They were neck and neck with Auburn until late in the fourth quarter. Like, they have not looked like a top quality football. Oh, South Carolina should have won that game, except South Carolina spent all season inventing new ways to lose football games. Again, and it's not hatred towards Alabama. I've done well with Alabama over the years, but I just think the debate has been incorrectly framed to make it Miami versus Notre Dame, and I think it should be wider in scope than it is. And I'm annoyed with the committee being tremendously inconsistent with what the criteria and what the judgment is. I think, honestly, I think most of the country, outside of perhaps the state of Oklahoma, is annoyed with the inconsistent, language. And look, if I were Notre Dame right now, I'd be pissed off because a bunch of people think if BYU loses and Notre Dame and Miami are suddenly next to each other, then out of nowhere, after 3 weeks of debate, Miami's going to jump Notre Dame. If I were a Notre Dame fan and that happened, I'd be incredibly annoyed with the committee. I'd be annoyed. Honestly, if I were a Notre Dame fan, I'd be annoyed with the committee right now because Alabama jumped us this week when they beat Auburn by a touchdown. They beat a 5-7 Auburn team by a touchdown with 3 minutes left to go.
sure. Inconsistencies always, spark all kinds of negative reaction, and not the least of which was, of course, leaving Florida State out a couple of years ago, undefeated team because they had a backup quarterback, and then there was a lot of speculation the Lane Kiffin departure would diminish Ole Miss
again
in terms of the ratings, and they went up a spot. So
again, and not only, again, we talked about on a previous show, not only Lane Kiffin leaving, but Lane Kiffin leaving and naming Pete Golding the biggest doofus in America. I mean, again, we talked about on a previous show. The guy was Nick Saban's defensive coordinator for 4 years and couldn't get an offer for a head coaching job.
Yeah,
that is
overlooked by Bowling Green.
Borderline impossible to be Nick Saban's defense. It'd be like, Andy Reid's offensive coordinator in the pros and not getting a coaching job. It's unfathomable.
That happened though. Who was the running back and it became his
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Bieniemy.
Yeah, and what happened? Brian Flores.
Yeah, even with the Rooney Rule, they couldn't get.
Brian Flores sued the league on behalf of Eric Bieniemy because of it.
All right, let's get into these games because as much clarity as people thought the conference championships would define as far as the college football playoff, it could even add a murkier element to the equation here because you do have today James Madison, who people I seem to feel, Professor, correct me if I'm wrong, that if they win, they'll probably be in the college football playoff, and they're favored by 23 and a hook.
No, I think that's incorrect. I think James Madison gets in if they win.
And Duke has to win.
ACC.
Right? Okay.
Otherwise, I think it'll be just the winner of the American, which is a game between North Texas and Tulane.
Okay.
Tonight we'll get the G5 spot. We'll see. I don't really think Duke's going to win that football game. So I don't know how good I think James Madison's chances are. We'll find out. And again, it'll be another committee thing. Like, what if, Tulane wins, but their quarterback gets hurt during the game? Maybe James Madison jumps in there.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll see. I will say we got a couple of things.
All right. What are you looking at?
Tonight. Number one, we mentioned earlier, I'm not so sure how confident I am in Tulane with Summerall spending all week basically in Gainesville doing interviews. I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to prepare for, you're supposedly, the defensive guy for your team. You're playing a very high flying offense in North Texas in this one. I don't know that I think that's necessarily the best uh, uh, preparation. By the way, North Texas, number one in total offense in the country, number two in passing offense in the country. So, again, big test for that Tulane defense, which is a respectable unit, but did get smashed up a bit earlier in the year by UTSA. Not exactly a juggernaut of a team. But the one that really interests me is we have a number flying up the boards with Boise State moving to 5.5 now on the official announcement that their quarterback Maddox Madsen, which good luck saying that 5 times
Yeah.
fast, will be returning after nearly a month. After more than a month missing games for Boise State. It is also a home game for Boise State, but I checked the weather just to double check it, and it does not appear to be that bad. It's supposed to be rainy at the start of the game, but played in like the mid 50s, so not the
Yeah.
normal disastrous Boise
Blizzard
Bowl
like
there.
conditions, yeah.
I'm not sure if I feel that confident in Madsen returning after missing a month. So I would be inclined to look at UNLV in the points there, particularly if it gets any bigger than 5.5, because I believe it's up at least 2 points overnight on that announcement.
Wow.
I think I saw it at 3.5 yesterday. I could be wrong there, but I think that's a number I saw yesterday.
Okay.
So a couple interesting spots there, and that'll take us into Saturday, where we have the MAC championship starting at noon. That's Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio. Western Michigan, the hottest team in the MAC, having won 4 in a row, including wins over Ohio, including our own Huskies of Northern Illinois. But the last team they lost to was Miami of Ohio. It was more of a month ago. Miami of Ohio, on the other hand, has gone the other direction since beating Western Michigan. They lost to Ohio. They got kind of smoked by Toledo in a bit of a snowball there. I actually watched that one on TV.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see, but I kind of am leaning towards Western Michigan as the hot team here, laying 2.5 in that game. I'm going to play it. We'll see what happens. Let me double check here if this is another one I need to check conditions in. No, this is indoors. It's in Detroit, so you're good on conditions here. Again, also for these two teams, kind of a low total at 43.5. So I think over would definitely be in play there as well.
What else would be
Um,
appropriate in the MAC conference than playing there?
right?
Yeah.
Who's going under 43.5 in the MAC unless they're playing in a blizzard?
That's one team's total. You would have thought it was a misprint. But,
Okay. That takes us to the SEC championship in the afternoon. Georgia laying 2.5 to Alabama. Again, people seem to be saying both teams are already in. I am not 100% confident Alabama's on 100% in, so I feel like they have a little bit more to play for here. Georgia's, but more importantly to me is the matchup. Again, we've talked about matchups with coaches in the SEC over the years. The one we love to hammer is every time Texas plays Georgia. It seems like Kirby Smart knows Sark's playbook backwards and forwards.
yes.
On the other hand, he seems to have a lot of problems with Kalen DeBoer's playbook. They hung a ton of points on him last year in the win early in the season. And then this year, again, early season matchup, but Alabama's offensive line kind of dominated that game, made Georgia really question their front seven as they could not get any pressure on Ty Simpson. Alabama won the game. They only won by 3, but if you go back and remember that game, Alabama had like 3 crucial drops, 2 of which would have been touchdown passes and kind of made that game a block. So with a little bit more to play for and catching points and what seems to be maybe a bit of a favorable matchup, I am definitely leaning towards Alabama plus the 2.5 that one. Bad for the University of Miami's playoff chances, but I think good for your your personal win loss percentage, taking Alabama in the points there.
Yeah,
And
that's
that takes us into the Big Ten title game. That's of course Indiana and Ohio State in sort of I guess it's the biggest matchup of the day. Although I'm not sure either of them really have much of anything to play for, other than avoiding injuries in this one. The winner has 100% bye, is going to be the number 1 seed. The loser could very well get a bye regardless of the loss. I just don't know if I think Indiana's. I kind of think we're going to get with Indiana what we got last year when they got into the first round of the playoffs and looked like they just did not have the bodies along both lines of scrimmage to compete with Notre Dame. I kind of feel like we're headed to that same sort of distinction with Indiana this year, that we're going to get into it. We're going to say, yeah, they went 11-0 and they look great, but they just don't have the blood at that program yet to win this kind of game. So I'm definitely inclined to take Ohio State minus the 4.5. Again, we talked about it before. It's taken him a long time, but it finally seems like Ryan Day's sort of figured it out at Ohio State. Just basically get the hell out of the way. And your other night game that we're going to pick it, although I don't necessarily recommend watching it. That's Virginia and Duke.
Yep.
In a matchup more suited for Quiz Bowl than football. Yeah, I mean, if this were an SAT competition, it would probably be very exciting.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be an exciting football game. I haven't liked Duke at any point in the season. Their quarterback, Mensah, when he's good, but when he's bad, he turns the ball over. Virginia's been very opportunistic on both sides of the ball this year. I would be inclined to take the Cavs, lay the 4.5.
Just beat them by 17 in a previous matchup, head-to-head. And Duke, not an impressive close to the season. I guess you could give Manny Diaz some credit for keeping the program at whatever level it currently is, but nothing sensational, and hard to imagine that they can turn that.
Again, I give Manny credit. He's got a winning season. It took the ACC screwy tiebreaker to do it, but he got into the ACC title game.
Yeah.
Manny is another one, although it seems this morning like the hot rumor is Matt Campbell to Penn State. Manny's another one who's been mentioned. Like, again, despite his struggles at the end down here in Miami, I would say that would be a valid one. So, again, can't hate on the guy.
Well, we'll see what kind of chaos that causes, too, if Duke comes up with the win. So, and we love chaos, let's face it. We love the smell of napalm and confusion in the morning.
I mean, what it's mostly going to mean is whoever the number 5 team is going to be favored by like 30 points in the first round of the playoffs. I think who is it? I think maybe Oregon is currently number 5. Whoever's number 5 currently.
I can't wait for the screaming to start when it becomes official who got hosed, which is always the great question around.
Oh, it's going to be. If Miami gets left out, it's going to get bloody in the streets down here.
Yeah. There could be all kinds of confusion out there on the streets on Biscayne Boulevard, South Beach.
Yeah, you're not going to want to be if you're a Notre Dame fan in Miami and Miami gets left out on Sunday. Don't wear your Irish gear outside. It's going to be nothing. Don't wear your Irish gear to Art Basel this weekend. It's not going to be doing any.
Irish pubs will be getting egged by the Miami faithful. All right. Thanks, Professor. Always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck with all your wagers. And we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. And if any level, or element of fairness is actually involved, and if they come up with the right choices. Thanks so much for being with us. Always a pleasure, my friend.
You have a great one, Deef.
The Professor, ladies and gentlemen, here with us on Bury Your Bookie. All right, we will see you guys on Monday. Good luck with all your plays. So the Professor, like in Alabama, it was a good series of logical elements that he threw in there. So going with Western Michigan, hot team in the MAC. These are the Saturday games. And thinking Ohio State cruises by Indiana, that they make it look as easy as they have with their ability to cover point spreads all season long. And we did see this Virginia line move a little bit. I had it at 3.5 yesterday, Virginia over Duke. And hopefully you caught it there, because it's currently showing me 4.5. So, but like I said, I'm getting these lines as yesterday's news tomorrow. They fluctuate so quickly, and everybody's on top of it. Going a little old school here, but that was some line movement in favor of Virginia in that game. Duke just general consensus seems to be too inconsistent towards the end of the season to actually win this ball game and throw like a serious wrench into everything that the committee will have to decide and what the criteria is actually going to be. All right, we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Monday. Good luck, everybody, with all your wagers. Enjoy the ball games. They got big slate of pro games and, of course, hockey, basketball, college basketball. So enough to literally play Russian roulette with your money over the weekend and get in as much action as you possibly can. We will see you on Monday. And thanks so much for tuning in to this afternoon's and this morning's edition of Bury Your Bookie.